Hey everyone, I'm Rose and welcome back to my channel. All about money and investing made easy. Getting ahead with money is a lot easier when you actually have a place for your money to go. If you don't have a goal in place for your money, as soon as payday hits, your money is gonna go to everyone and everything except yourself. And before you knew it, another month is gonna go by and you'll have nothing to show for it financially. Believe me, I speak from experience. Going from paycheck to paycheck is not fun. That's why in this video, I want to talk about the 6 accounts that everyone needs for financial freedom. You don't need to have all 6 of these accounts right away or all at once, but it is a good idea to eventually have them all because each one serves a different purpose. I'll explain each account in order of importance, so feel free to start from the top and work your way towards the bottom. The first account everyone needs for financial freedom is a savings account. The point of this account is to serve as your emergency fund, which is a cash cushion for you to fall back on if you get hit with an unexpected bill or if you lose your job, something like that. No matter what personal finance experts you follow, every single one of them recommends having an emergency fund. It's just a universally good idea. Why? Because without one, your finances are really vulnerable. I don't care how many investments you have or how big your salary is. One unexpected, maybe car repair or a layoff or, like a medical bill, like layoffs that happened to millions of people during the pandemic. Just one thing like that could get you into credit card debt or just put you into a really undesirable financial position. A couple years ago, I was talking to a friend who had lost her job during the 2007-2008 recession. She was a bit older than me. I was still in school during that recession, so I didn't really experience anything like that. But she said it was really stressful for her. Her entire team at the company got laid off, and all of her coworkers were stressing about how to pay the mortgage and put food on the table. But my friend was smart and she had an emergency fund, so she wasn't stressed at all. She coasted for a few months, living off her emergency fund, and when the economy started getting a little bit better, she got a new job. This story really left an impression on me. If you're a millennial or around the same age range as me, we haven't actually been through a real recession before as an adult. Maybe the coronavirus, that was probably the roughest thing economically that we've experienced, but just thinking about how much better off my friend was than her coworkers during the last recession because she had an emergency fund, that really made me a believer. Fortunately, most of the time you aren't going to need to touch your emergency fund, but the few times that you do, you will be so glad that you have it. And make it your emergency fund. The key with this is that it has to be separate from the everyday checking account that you use for all of your income and expenses. That way you can't access the money by just swiping your debit card. Your emergency fund is sacred money that you can get to when you need it, but it's not mixed up with your everyday spending. The best place to keep your emergency fund is at an online-only high-yield savings account. Online-only banks, as opposed to brick-and-mortar banks like Wells Fargo, Chase, Bank of America, these tend to have much less overhead since they don't have physical locations. So they usually tend to pass on the savings to you in the form of lower account fees and higher interest rates. Personally, I keep my emergency fund at Capital One 360, which at the moment pays about 0.5%. After a quick online search, I found a couple of other interesting online-only banks that pay a little bit more, such as Quantic Bank, which I've never heard of till now, but they're paying 0.65% right now. However, since the entire banking system is linked to the interest rate set by the Fed, it's not going to make much of a difference which online-only bank you choose. They're all going to be around the same range. I like Capital One 360 because they let you create sub-accounts. So with one umbrella account there, I can create multiple buckets and nickname them. So one of them is my emergency fund, which I've actually named it that. And I also have 3 other accounts in here that I'll explain a little bit later in this video. The second account that everyone needs for financial freedom is a workplace-sponsored retirement plan. If you're employed, that would be a 401k. In Canada, it's RRSP. In Australia, superannuation. Goes by different names in different places. Also, and in the US, if you're self-employed, you can open either a SEP IRA or solo 401k. So there's lots of different types of workplace-sponsored investment plans. And the reason this account comes in as number 2 is because of the tax advantages. In general, anything you contribute to a workplace-sponsored retirement plan directly reduces your taxable income. For example, if your salary is $100,000, but you contributed maybe $20,000 to your 401k throughout the year, then you'll only get taxed on $80,000 instead of your full salary of $100,000. The same goes for if you're self-employed. If your business netted $100,000 for the year, but you contribute $20,000 to your SEP IRA, then you'll get taxed on $80,000 of business income instead of on $100,000 of business income. I don't know about you, but I will take a $20,000 tax deduction for my business any day. As for me, I have a solo 401k, which I have at E-Trade. And if you're self-employed, I do like solo 401ks better than SEP IRAs because of the option to make Roth contributions. So unless you have a trust fund waiting for you somewhere, everyone has to prepare financially for when they are old. Even if you want to retire young and early like I do, you still need to have something set aside for when you're 70 plus. That's why some sort of workplace sponsored retirement account is account number 2 on this list. And it's one that everyone should have. Now, if you don't have access to a workplace sponsored retirement plan, either because your employer doesn't offer 401ks or because your tax situation doesn't allow for one, then not to worry, because you can just skip to this next account on the list. The next account that everyone needs for financial freedom is a Roth IRA. IRAs, or individual retirement account, are retirement accounts that also give you major tax benefits for investing. There are 2 types of IRAs, Roth and traditional. The Roth IRA, named after Senator William Roth, who added it to the US tax code, is a newer and better version of the traditional IRA. So there's traditional IRAs and Roths. With a Roth IRA, you can invest your money in stocks and bonds and never have to pay taxes on any of the gains. Even if you put in $1,000 and it grows to $1 million, all $1 million is yours to keep just because it's inside of a Roth IRA. In a normal situation, you have to pay capital gains tax on all profits that you make. Capital gains tax on almost $1 million of profit would be a lot. I think it's around 20%. So the Roth IRA is a powerful wealth building vehicle that basically eliminates the need to pay taxes on your investments. The reason this account is number 3 on the list is because the opportunity to invest and build tax-free wealth is not to be taken for granted. In fact, the government knows that the Roth IRA is such a good deal that they cap your annual contributions to $6,000 a year. You can't put more than $6,000 a year into your Roth IRA because it's that good. So once you have your emergency fund and a workplace sponsored retirement plan, then definitely plan on setting aside money to put into a Roth IRA as well. Also, do your best to put in the full $6,000 every single year. Try to max out your Roth IRA every year that you can. What's good about Roth IRAs is that you can also take your contributions back out if you ever need the money sooner than the 59.5 age limit that you're allowed to start withdrawing money at. So if you need to access your Roth IRA earlier, you can do that without paying penalties, as long as you're withdrawing only principal and not any investment gains. So the Roth IRA can serve as a vehicle for early retirement as well. I have my Roth IRA at Fidelity. And if you're curious to know why I chose Fidelity for my Roth IRA, make sure to download my ultimate guide to investment accounts. I explain various options for where to open your Roth IRA, as well as all the other types of investment accounts that I mentioned in this video. I know it can be overwhelming to choose a platform or a place to open your certain types of accounts because there's so many options out there. So this guide will greatly simplify that decision-making process for you so that you can get started investing sooner rather than later, instead of spending hours and hours on Google trying to figure out what the best option is. So you can grab the download link to this guide right below this video. Next up, the 4th account is the Health Savings Account, or HSA. Oh my God, even though it's 4th on the list, the HSA is actually my favorite account. Why? Because it's like the triple tax loophole. Even though it says savings account in its name, the Health Savings Account is actually a full-blown investment account where you can hold stocks and bonds just like an IRA, except that it's actually even better than an IRA, because as long as you use the money for health-related expenses, you don't have to pay taxes on the money that you put in, on the gains that your money makes, or on the money that you take out. That's why the HSA is a triple tax loophole. Money going in, money growing inside the account, and money coming out. No taxes. Now, I'm a huge health nut. I'm super cheap with myself when it comes to clothing, shoes, eating out, hotel rooms, but I do not like cheaping out on anything related to health and wellness. That's why I love having an HSA, because I know that my money is growing in there tax-free, so that when I'm a lot older, I'll have a nice, big, tax-free nest egg for all my health-related expenses. The catch with the HSA is that you can only contribute to one if your health insurance plan allows you to do so. In other words, you need to be on an HSA eligible plan. So give your insurance provider a call and see if you're eligible. If not, see if it might make sense for you to switch to one next year. Your HSA is meant to be a supplement to your health insurance, and I find that it's useful to really help pay for things that typically aren't covered by insurance. For example, acupuncture, contact lenses, LASIK, visits with a naturopathic doctor. These things usually aren't covered by insurance, but you can pay for them out of your HSA. Healthcare isn't getting any cheaper, and even if you're young and healthy, we all need to set aside money for healthcare, and that's why I think the HSA is one of the must-have accounts for financial freedom. Moving right along, the fifth account is a savings account for big purchases. Once you've taken care of the basics, emergency fund, retirement, health expenses, now you can start saving up for big, fun purchases, like dream purchases, like a down payment on a home, a new car, a vacation, a wedding, etc. The reason it's number 5 on the list is because far too often people jump into things like buying a house or a new car before they've taken care of more important financial priorities, such as having an emergency fund, saving for retirement. I sound like a broken record here, health expenses. So we live in a materialistic society that revolves around consuming and having things. So that's often what you'll naturally want to spend money on. Like, you're not gonna get social brownie points for having a big 401k or an emergency fund, but you will get a lot of brownie points for having a nice apartment or a fancy car, because that's what you can show off on Instagram and talk to your friends about. As long as we live in a society dominated by consumer culture, doing financially smart things is never going to be the glamorous, cool looking thing to do. But at the end of the day, your Instagram followers aren't gonna be paying your bills, and all the people you spend money to impress aren't the ones who are gonna pay for your nursing home expenses when you're 95 years old. Okay, enough with my little rant there. I will get off my soapbox now. But the point is, when you already have the first 4 accounts on this list, and you're contributing money to each of them regularly, now you can open a designated savings account for a big fun purchase that you want to make. As for where to open your big purchase account, you'll want to do an online only high yield savings account, just like your emergency fund. I actually recommend keeping it at the same bank as your emergency fund, but as separate accounts. Of course, it's also an option to invest this money instead of keeping it in a savings account. But if you're saving up for a big purchase that's coming up in just a few years, you're better off saving it in a bank account so that it's not subject to all the ups and downs of the stock market. If you have Capital One 360 like I do, which I highly recommend, this is not a sponsored video, I just really like Capital One 360, then it's really easy to organize your finances because you can open as many sub accounts as you want under one umbrella account and give each one a nickname. So here I have my emergency fund, here I have my house fund for the condo that I want to buy one day, and here I also have my YOLO fund, which stands for, what is it? You only live once, YOLO. So I don't know exactly what it's gonna be for yet, but when I want to YOLO, I'll have the money to splurge on something one day. Oh, and also in case you're wondering, this sub account right here is my tax account, which is where I set aside money to pay my taxes every quarter. This is a must if you're self-employed. Okay, and finally, the 6th account that everyone needs for financial freedom is a taxable brokerage account. It's optional to get this far because as long as you have at least the first 3 accounts that I talked about, emergency fund, 401k, and IRA, you'll have the basics covered. But if you're maxing out your contribution limits to all of these accounts already and you're good on those basics, and you're also saving up for a big purchase, and you still have money left over to put away, then consider doing more in a taxable brokerage account. Unlike IRAs and HSAs, taxable brokerage accounts don't provide any special tax benefits. In fact, any investments you hold in one of these accounts are all subject to taxation. Capital gains on profits, income taxes on dividends and interest, etc. But the good thing about it is you can contribute as much as you want. You can put however much you want into a taxable account every year, and you can withdraw money from it whenever you want as well. No annoying IRS regulations about needing to turn 59 and a half before you take money out and all those kinds of things. Something else that's good about this type of account is that pretty much anyone in the world can open a taxable brokerage account. A lot of the accounts I talked about in this video are American specific, and they're not available to non-US investors like IRAs and 401ks, very US specific. But there are no restrictions for taxable brokerage accounts. TD Ameritrade offers it for international investors. So all of you non-US investors, if you want to invest in the US market, check out TD Ameritrade because they offer accounts in most countries. The goal is to have these 6 accounts and to get to a position where you have enough cash flow to contribute something towards each of them every single month. Even better, you should automate everything so that money is just coming out of each paycheck and going straight into these 6 accounts without you having to do anything. Trust me, once you get the automation part down, you're not even gonna notice that the money is going to all these places. And then you'll be pleasantly surprised when you log into your savings account one day and you see like all this money sitting there that you've accumulated over time. Also remember, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So don't feel bad about yourself if you haven't set up any of the accounts I talked about today. Just focus on number 1, start with the emergency fund, and then when you have that, move on to number 2, and so on and so forth. Baby steps. Financial freedom does not happen overnight. I'm not even there yet. I'm still working on it. So if you could use some guidance on where to open your accounts, be sure to grab my ultimate guide to investment accounts, where I go over the best places to open IRAs, HSAs, solo 401ks, and brokerage accounts. This guide gets rave reviews from everyone who downloads it, so I highly recommend it if you're just starting out. Just click the link right below in the description. I hope you found this helpful. I post new videos every Wednesday about making, saving, and investing money. So if you liked this video, I would love it if you subscribed. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you, and I'll see you next week, same time, same place. Bye.